Okay, a very good evening to you all.
Hello.
As usual, I'd like to test if I'm audible.
Yes, you're
Am I
audible.
audible?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the apostle for giving me this chance to share with us a word of charge tonight. And our topic tonight is titled Wisdom and Understanding. Amen.
Amen.
So I'd like to start by giving an experience or something that I went through that links to wisdom and understanding. So ever since from the time that I got born again, when I gave my life to Christ, I began to know that there is a God in heaven. And I knew that I am a child of God. But something changed when I realized, when I gained insight that in God's eyes, what do I look like? And this change occurred when I boarded an aeroplane for the first time. So we were above the clouds, and as I looked down, I was seeing those small, tiny houses. If anybody has been on the plane, they know how it looks, right? They were so tiny, you couldn't even see the cars. I think the tallest buildings were actually the ones that looked like the houses, you know. So it looked like I was looking at some toys, right? So then I gained insight. My eyes were now opened. I now realized that in God's eyes, we were like his little toys, right? So it made me wonder that how come I'm so special to God that he can listen to me even though I'm his little toy? I mean, he has time to listen to me. He has time to actually hear what I have to say. And that really humbled me. It changed the way that I knew who God was, right? So that is a clear example of the difference between wisdom and understanding. The wisdom that I had was that I knew that there's a God in heaven. So it allowed me to live a life that was pleasing to him. But when I gained insight, when I had an understanding of who God was, it allowed me to become humble and to realize who truly God is. Amen.
Amen.
Proverbs 4 verse 7, which Sister Lydia just said a few minutes ago, says that getting wisdom is the most important thing you can do. Whatever else you get insight. Amen.
Amen.
So somebody might be wondering, what is wisdom? Now, according to the Oxford Dictionary, wisdom is the ability to make sensible decisions and to give good advice because of the experience and knowledge that one has. So as children of God, as human beings, there are certain times that we lack experience or we have never come across certain knowledges. So we are unable to become wise in certain circumstances. So when we ask the Lord to give us wisdom, it's as if we are drawing knowledge, or we are drawing some wisdom from the person who knows everything about this world, from the wisest person on earth. That is why it is encouraged for every believer to ask for this gift from God. Amen. We are all entitled to this gift. All you need to do is ask the Lord to give you wisdom. Now, we're also going to look at the meaning of insight or understanding. Now, insight is defined as the capacity to gain accurate and deep understanding about someone or something, right? So when you gain deep understanding about someone or something, this is whereby you are no longer just looking at something with your naked eyes, but now you know deeply what this person is all about. You now know a lot more than what any other person would know just by looking at that person. So that is what insight is. However, one should always remember that without insight, you're just as good as a person who is walking blindly. You may be wise, but if you lack insight, you're likely to fall into a pit because you are blind. So for a child of God, Insight or understanding is usually combined with discernment. You are able to discern, you are able to see things that could not be seen with a naked eye. So as we go further, I'm going to leave it to all of us to decide whether it's important to have wisdom or insight, or both of them matter. So at this point in time, I would like us to analyze two Bible characters, right? In the Bible, we have Solomon and David. David was Solomon's father. Now, Solomon, we know very well that he is said to be the wisest person that ever lived, because he asked wisdom from the Lord and he was given that wisdom. But today we're going to analyze the differences between David and Solomon in trying to understand the difference between wisdom and insight. Now, the first thing about Solomon is that Solomon had wisdom. He had outstanding wisdom. He knew how to deal with issues. For example, if we look at the fact that he was able to make a good decision and execute those decisions when he was told to eliminate his father's enemies so that he could have all-round peace. Whilst on the other hand, we have David. David's wisdom is not written as outstanding in the Bible. Nothing outstanding is said about his wisdom. And we see that he did lack some wisdom in dealing with his enemies. Although God protected him, he constantly had many battles going on throughout his life. You can imagine how hard it was every time you're going for battle, every time. Although God was defending him, but I'm sure it was tiring. If only he had that wisdom to deal with his enemies accordingly, then his life would have been much more peaceful. And then we look at the second point about Solomon. Solomon treated his people well. We are told that he treated his servants accordingly. He treated them well. So when you treat people well, it is wise. It is a form of wisdom, because in return, those people will also like you and they'll defend you. They wouldn't decide to harm you, but instead they'll decide to fight for you because you have treated them well. We are not told anything outstanding about how David treated his servants. The Bible doesn't clearly say anything about that. So those are the two differences between Solomon and David. That one had outstanding wisdom, one lacked wisdom in some certain areas, right? Now, in terms of insight, the difference between Solomon and David is that Solomon lacked insight of who truly God was. Though he had wisdom, and though he gave 1,000 offerings to God, his relationship with God was more of a give and take relationship. He gave God 1,000 offerings, and in return, he was given wisdom. But we don't see that intimate relationship. We don't see that deep understanding that David, his father, had when he was dealing with God. With David, if you read the Psalms, it's as if a lover is talking to his lover. You know, you can actually feel that intimate relationship, that deep understanding that David had about God. Amen. Now, the thing about our two characters is that both of them were not perfect. They did sin against God. But it was that insight that allowed David to ask for forgiveness. Solomon sinned against God and started worshiping idols. And he was warned 3 times. God talked to him that, stop this thing. I hate it when you worship idols. I am the true God. He was warned 3 times, right? For David, he was only told once to stop what he was doing. And immediately he was able to stop that which he had been doing. Which shows us the difference there. One had insight and one had outstanding wisdom. So that insight that David had allowed him to be humble enough to go and ask for forgiveness from God immediately, because he didn't want that intimate relationship he had with God to end. But as for Solomon, it was difficult for him to return back to God and say, I'm sorry, because he couldn't possibly understand. All his life, he never gained insight of who truly God was. So I've heard many of times, even I have been part of a discussion where we say that Solomon, towards the end of his life, he lacked wisdom. He no longer had wisdom. But I must say that probably Solomon still had wisdom. Probably he could still he could still give very good advice. But the thing is, Solomon never had insight in his whole life. In fact, we now start seeing Solomon trying to gain insight of what the meaning of life is. In the book of Ecclesiastes, we see him trying to see or trying to understand, trying to gain a deeper understanding of what life meant, because all along his life had been meaningless, right? So now he's trying to understand, and he comes to the conclusion that vanity upon vanities, all is vanity. That is what he said. And I would like to say that that is the greatest insight that has ever been written in the Bible, that vanity upon vanities, all is vanity. Now he started to realize, he started to understand, his eyes became open. He started to really understand that a life without God was just vanity. That is when he began to understand now that a life without God was just in vain. But at that time, probably it was too late to make any change. So looking at those two, you can now wonder which one is better, to have wisdom or to have insight. You know, for David, his insight helped him to correct his ways when he was wrong. And probably he's in heaven right now. But as for Solomon, he only gained the insight at the end of his life, and it costed him a lot. The disciples of Jesus in Luke chapter 24, verse 31, it says that then their eyes were opened and they recognized Jesus. So all along they were walking with Jesus, but they didn't know that they were walking with him. But it's not like they were foolish. No, they were actually talking good things about Jesus. They were actually wise, but they lacked an insight. They could not see, they were blind until their eyes had to be opened. So that is the main difference between wisdom and understanding. Understanding is whereby your eyes become open. You start to see, you start to understand things deeply. And wisdom is just living your life in a way that is pleasing to God, but you do not really know, or you're not really able to establish an intimate relationship with God. So that is basically the difference. And I'd like to encourage all of us to pursue wisdom and understanding. A balance of both of them can help you to achieve much in life. That is my message today. Thank you.